I remember the exact moment something in me started to shift. It wasn't a dramatic fight or some suspicious text message. It was the way she stood at the kitchen sink that morning, barefoot, silent, pouring her coffee without looking up. Like I wasn't even there. Like I was furniture. That small, eerie moment stuck with me more than anything. It was the silence, the complete indifference in her body. It buzzed in the back of my skull like an old radio left on static. 3 weeks before everything went down, I started keeping a mental tally of the weirdness. Not because I was trying to catch her cheating. That word hadn't even crossed my mind yet. But because something was off and I needed to figure out if it was her or me losing it. She started humming when she cooked, but the tune was unfamiliar. She painted her nails a dark shade I'd never seen her wear in 16 years. She started replying to questions with shrugs or non-answers like, "I don't know. Figure it out." There was a Friday. I picked her up from this rooftop bar downtown, the kind of place you had to know someone to get in. I waited outside for nearly 30 minutes, and when she finally walked out, she was laughing at something someone behind her said, a tall guy in a gray blazer with a perfect jawline. She didn't see me right away. The way she tossed her hair, how she touched his arm lightly like that wasn't her usual way of saying thanks to a stranger. And when she did spot me, the way her smile dropped, replaced by this tight, guilty smirk, it wasn't right. I asked, "Who's that?" and she said, "Nobody important." Nobody important. Those 2 words rattled in my brain all night. And still, I didn't push. Not yet. I started observing her like a stranger in my own home. She'd disappear into the garage for long phone calls. Her tone changed when she was on them, low, rushed, like she was rehearsing lines for a movie scene. She took a sudden interest in spin classes, then never actually came back sweaty. She'd change into athletic clothes, leave, return with flawless hair and untouched makeup. I began testing her. Small tests. I'd ask what movie she wanted to watch and she'd barely register the question. I'd try to touch her hand and she'd flinch like I'd startled her. When I asked if we could have dinner just the 2 of us, she said, "What's the point?" I didn't even respond. That wasn't just a crack in the foundation, that was the whole structure giving out. And then came the night that flipped everything on its head. A Saturday. Kids at her sister's place. The kind of rare evening we used to plan something special for. I was in the living room when she walked in wearing this red blouse I'd never seen. Her hair curled, makeup sharp, heels echoing on the hardwood. I stupidly thought it was for me. She stood in front of the mirror adjusting her necklace, not even glancing my way. Then she said it. So plainly, so confidently, "I'm going out tonight. With someone." I blinked. "A friend." "No," she turned, looked me dead in the eye. "Someone I've been seeing." My body didn't even react at first. No fists clenched. No yelling. It was like my brain just stalled. She kept going, her tone syrupy and cold at once. "I'm still young. I'm still attractive. And I'm not going to rot away in this house while you pretend like we're still happy. I want something else. I want someone who sees me." And then, like she was daring me, no, daring herself, she added, "I'm staying with him tonight. I don't care how you feel about it." She gave me this smug smile, already reaching for her clutch like she expected some pathetic meltdown. Like I'd beg, like I'd cry or block the door or crumble. But I didn't. I said 7 words. Calm, measured, deadly quiet. "You don't get to come back here." For the first time in months, her expression broke. She wasn't prepared for that. Not for the version of me that wasn't pleading or hurt. Just done. And that, right there, was when everything really began. You think that was the big confrontation? No, that was just the first domino. The real storm hadn't even started yet. What came next? That's where it gets twisted. She paused with her hand on the doorknob, not fully turning, just tilting her head like she couldn't quite process what I said. "What?" I stood. Not fast, not threatening, just enough to match her height. "You heard me. Don't come back." Her lips parted like she was about to laugh, like this was some game where she throws her tantrum, I play the fool and the balance resets. But there was no punchline waiting for her this time. Just silence. "You're being dramatic," she said, eyebrows lifting, voice syrupy with fake calm. You don't mean that. I mean every word. This isn't a break. It's not a timeout. You walk out that door to him, there's no welcome mat when you come crawling back. Something flickered in her expression then. Something ugly and sharp. Not fear. Not regret. But offense. The kind of offense people feel when their favorite mirror suddenly reflects something they don't like. "Oh, so now you grow a spine," she snapped. "After all these years of you walking around like a ghost in this house. Now you want to pretend like you're in control?" There it was. The venom under the skin. She wasn't shaken because she cared. She was shaken because she lost the upper hand. And just like that, her tone changed again. Cold. Dismissive. "You think you're the victim here? You haven't touched me in months. You stopped seeing me a long time ago. I just finally stopped waiting. I should have felt something. Rage. Grief. But all I felt was clarity." She was rewriting history in real time, shoving blame like a dealer at a rigged table. But I wasn't playing anymore. She scoffed and turned to the door again. "You'll call me. You always do." And then she left. She walked out of our house off to someone else's bed like it was nothing. Like 16 years, 2 children, 100 shared holidays, and 1,000 mundane Tuesdays didn't weigh a thing. The door shut with a quiet click. No slamming. Just final. I didn't move for a long time. The house felt hollow without her, but not in the way you'd think. Not empty. Exposed. Like when a power outage kills the background hum of the fridge and you suddenly realize how loud silence can be. I sat back down and stared at the spot where she stood. And then, like a reflex, I pulled out my phone. I hadn't planned to look through her things. I never snooped. Never felt the need to. But something inside me, some long-dormant instinct, guided my fingers. I went to our shared laptop. She always used it to order groceries, plan vacations, log into her work stuff. I typed in the password. Easy. Our son's birthday. She never changed it. I opened her email. And that's when the real unraveling began. There were messages. Dozens. From someone named Miles. I clicked the most recent. "Can't stop thinking about last night. The way you whispered my name. When he's not even touching you, how can he expect to keep you?" Attached. A blurry photo of her in the mirror. Red blouse hanging off one shoulder. Smile crooked like she was drunk on power. My mouth went dry. But I didn't stop there. More emails. More pictures. A few from a hotel room I didn't recognize. One of her laying on her side. Blanket just barely covering her chest. Her wedding ring clearly visible on the nightstand. There was even a receipt for a weekend booking at a spa resort for 2. Paid with our joint card. It wasn't just infidelity. It was betrayal built with receipts, time-stamped and deliberate. That's when I realized she hadn't just found someone new. She'd been building a life outside ours for months. Planning an exit. Grooming this Miles into a replacement. And I was supposed to sit quietly, hand her the keys, and wish her well? No. Not anymore. But the best part? The twist? Miles wasn't a stranger. His name didn't hit me right away. Miles? Just a name. Common. Harmless. Until I scrolled further and saw an old email chain, months old, titled Reunion Planning. That's when my stomach flipped. I opened it hard in my throat. There he was. Miles Benton. We went to college together. Same dorm. Same damn poker nights. He used to come over for game nights with Melissa and me back in the early years. He held our daughter when she was born. We sent him a Christmas card just last year. The betrayal wasn't abstract anymore. It had a face. A smirking, glass-raising, fake friend face. My vision blurred for a second. Not rage, something colder. Not heartbreak, something deeper. The kind of emotion you can't even name because it doesn't belong in words. This wasn't a stranger stealing my wife. This was a man I knew. A man I let into my home. Who smiled at my kids. Ate my food. Laughed at my jokes. And her? She'd been playing both sides. Smiling across the table at us both while building some sick fantasy in the shadows. Pretending to be the devoted wife while sending this man emails about how she wished I'd just move on and let her go without making it messy. Oh, she had no idea what messy looked like. I didn't sleep that night. I read every email. Every nauseating line of it. She called him M. Signed her emails, yours always. There was a message from just 3 weeks ago that I read 10 times before I stood up. He's clueless. Still thinks I'm just tired from work. It's almost pathetic. He hasn't made me feel anything in years. You, on the other hand? God, Miles, you remind me I'm still alive. And yet she still smiled at me over coffee. Still kissed our kids goodnight. Still wore her ring while writing this filth. I didn't cry. I didn't break anything. I didn't scream. I printed the emails. Every single one. Stapled by week. I labeled them by date. I even highlighted the most damning parts. There's something surgical about revenge when your emotions go completely still. It's no longer about passion. It becomes precision. The next morning she came back. Waltzed in around 9 a.m. like nothing had happened. Hair still curled. That same smug look on her face, like she was doing me a favor by returning it all. She dumped her bag on the counter and poured herself a glass of juice like she owned the air in the room. Morning, she said, barely glancing at me. I waited until she sat down with her phone. Then I walked over and dropped the neatly organized pile of paper in front of her. She didn't look up at first, just assumed it was some bill or receipt. Then she flipped the first page, and I watched her face change. It was slow, a twitch at the corner of her mouth. Her hand froze over her phone. Her breath stalled. She flipped another page, then another. Her fingers started to shake. What is this?" she whispered. "Proof," I said. "Of everything." She looked up, eyes darting, probably scanning for lies to tell. But this wasn't a spontaneous accusation. This was evidence. This was war. "You went through my stuff?" she said, trying to sound angry. "Weak defense. Transparent. You handed me everything I needed," I replied. "All I did was stop pretending not to see it." She stood. "This is insane. This is an invasion." "No." I cut her off, calm as a surgeon. "What's insane is bringing another man into our life, feeding him lies while you kiss our kids goodnight. What's insane is thinking you could play house with me while planning your next one behind my back." Her voice cracked. "You don't understand, Miles, and I held up a hand. "Stop." And for once she did. Her mouth closed. Her eyes dropped to the papers again. There was nothing she could say. No script left. I walked out of the room, left her standing there in her perfect hair and wrinkled lies. I didn't slam doors. I didn't throw plates. I left her with nothing but the weight of her own choices. But this was just my first move. She thought walking out that door was freedom. She hadn't seen what real consequences look like. The silence after the confrontation didn't last long. 2 hours later, she knocked on the bedroom door. My door now, not ours, and slipped in without waiting for an answer. She changed clothes, washed her face, probably hoping to look softer, more innocent. But her eyes gave her away. They had the dull panic of someone realizing the fire they started might actually burn the house down. She stood there, arms crossed over her chest like a shield. "I think we should talk." I didn't look at her. I just kept folding laundry. Calm hands, steady breath. Her eyes scanned the room for something, maybe empathy, maybe weakness. She wouldn't find either. "Talk," I said flatly, folding another shirt. She stepped closer. "You blindsided me, printing those emails, like it's some kind of court case." "It is," I said, looking up. "You just don't like the judge." She bit her lip. A performance. The same one I'd seen her use on teachers, store clerks, even the kids when she wanted to manipulate them without seeming harsh. "I didn't mean for it to happen," she started. The most predictable line in the world. "Stop," I said. "Just tell me the truth. You wanted out. You found someone. You chose him." "I didn't choose anyone," she snapped, suddenly defensive. "I was confused. I was lost. I needed to feel wanted. You had me. You had 2 children. You had a life people dream of." "Exactly," she hissed, voice suddenly raw. "People dream of it, but they don't live in it. You stopped seeing me. You treated me like routine." "And Miles saw you?" I asked. That friend who smiled at me over beers while secretly planning to take my place? She looked down, couldn't hold the eye contact. She knew the answer didn't help her. Nothing could. I let the silence thicken. Then I hit her with the one thing she hadn't expected. I've already filed. Her head jerked up. What? I filed for divorce this morning. The papers are being drawn. You'll be served next week. Are you serious? Her voice cracked, but not with sadness, with shock. Like I'd stolen the power she thought she'd hold until the end. You made your choice, I said. I'm just making it official. She walked toward me, too fast, as if proximity could reverse gravity. This isn't what I want, she said, lower now. You're making this ugly. No, I said, standing my ground. You made it ugly the moment you let someone else into our life and lied about it for months. She stared at me, trying to read my face, trying to find even a flicker of hesitation. There was none. I'll fight you, she said finally, trying to sound threatening. I won't just walk away with nothing. You'll walk away with the truth, I said. And I promise you that's all you're getting. And then came the real twist. She laughed. Not softly, not nervously. She laughed. You think this makes you strong? She said, venom dripping now. You think because you caught me, you win? I'm not playing, I said. There's no game. No scoreboard. Just an ending. Her face went hard. You'll regret this. You think you're punishing me, but you're just proving you were never man enough to keep me. And then she turned, stormed out like she was the one being betrayed. I stood there unmoved, because I'd already taken the next step. I didn't just file. I hired a lawyer who already knew everything. And Melissa? She had no idea what I just found in her financial records. See, she hadn't just been cheating on me. She'd been stealing. I didn't want to believe it at first. As much as I hated her for what she'd done, I still thought there were lines she wouldn't cross. Betrayal in the bedroom? Sure, clearly. Emotional lies? Absolutely. But financial betrayal? Stealing from the family? From our kids? I wasn't ready for that. But reality doesn't wait for you to be ready. It started with one line on a joint credit card statement that didn't make sense. A 5-figure transfer labeled consulting fee to some vague LLC in another state. The company name was so generic it screamed shell company. I only saw it because I was gathering documents for the lawyer and went through every account, every transaction. A lot of husbands never do. But I did. And thank God for that. So I dug deeper. I requested older statements, checked all bank activity. The more I looked, the more it unraveled. There were strange withdrawals going back almost a year. Some small, some large, but always on the days she claimed to be helping her sister, going to yoga, attending work retreats. That wasn't yoga. That was laundering. I took it to my lawyer, Jacobs. Quiet guy. Surgical. The kind you want when you need not just defense but damage. He reviewed everything without blinking, then leaned back in his chair and said, She's siphoning assets, trying to hide money before she walks away. This wasn't just an affair. This was premeditated. That word, premeditated. It rang in my skull like a bell. She wasn't just bored or reckless. She had mapped out the exit. She had been building it. Jacobs outlined the plan. Lock down accounts, freeze anything shared, notify the bank of suspected fraud, issue subpoenas for financial records. I signed everything. No hesitation. Then came the real trigger. Something I never would have thought to check on my own. A second phone bill. Turns out she had a burner phone. Paid in cash. Registered to a fake name. Miles had one too. They were using them for everything. All the coordination. The late-night planning. Even contact with a realtor in another state. They weren't just having an affair. They were preparing to vanish. Sell the house. Drain the savings. Move to Florida or Texas or wherever the fantasy took them. And worst of all, they hadn't even planned to fight for the kids. She was going to leave them too. Just walk away and start over like we were an old pair of shoes. I was holding the proof in my hands when she walked into the living room the next day like nothing had changed. Wearing her old college sweatshirt. Trying to look familiar. Innocent. I didn't say a word. I just handed her the packet my lawyer prepared. Financial discrepancies, timeline, subpoenas, a full list of every account she touched. Her face drained of color before she even got past the second page. "You went through my things again?" she asked, voice shaking but laced with rage. "No," I said. "I went through our things. You just forgot which parts of this life still belong to me." She dropped the papers. "This is crazy. This is paranoia." Then explain the second phone. Explain the fake consulting company. Explain the down payment on the condo in Miami made under your sister's maiden name. Her mouth opened, then shut. And in that pause, the truth sat heavy between us. She knew the game was over. I leaned forward. "You weren't just cheating. You were erasing me. You were trying to rob me blind and leave the kids without even looking back. You planned this. You and Miles both." Her hands started shaking. Her lips trembled like she might cry. But there were no tears, because that kind of monster doesn't cry for anyone but herself. She whispered, "You don't understand what it's like to feel invisible. You made me feel like a ghost in this house." "No," I said. "You chose to become one." And then she asked the question I was waiting for. "What are you going to do?" I looked her dead in the eyes. "I'm going to make sure you don't take another dollar. You walk away with nothing. No house, no savings, no lies left to tell." She tried to laugh again. "This pathetic, broken thing. You can't do that." I already started. And just as she opened her mouth to scream something back, there was a knock at the door. When she answered it, she went pale, because Jacobs was standing there, with a processor and divorce papers in hand, served right in front of her. And the look on her face, that was the first honest moment I'd seen from her in a long time. But trust me, that wasn't the last time I planned to shock her. She slammed the door after the processor left, like that would undo what just happened. Her hands clenched at her sides, trembling, not with fear, but with fury. She turned to me, teeth bared behind a plastic smile. I could see it, the realization setting in that she was losing control. And she hated it. "You think this scares me?" she said through her teeth. "You think I'm going to roll over just because you played this cute little game?" "It's not a game," I said quietly. "This is just me finally playing by your rules." She stared at me like she was trying to light me on fire with her eyes. "You think Miles won't step in? You think I'm alone now?" And that's when I smiled, because I had been waiting for that name to come out of her mouth. Finally, she said it. "Miles?" "Perfect." I didn't answer. I just walked past her, calm, collected, as if she wasn't even there. Her voice followed me, sharp and desperate. "I'm not going to let you destroy me. He'll help me fight you. He has money. He has connections. You're just some bitter husband throwing a tantrum." I didn't respond. Not yet, because the next move had already been made. I had hired someone 2 days ago. A private investigator. A professional with a reputation for uncovering what people swore didn't exist. And the file he delivered was thicker than I expected. Turns out Miles had skeletons. A whole damn cemetery. Miles Benton, the savior. The man who was going to sweep her away from her cruel, boring husband and start a perfect new life. He had 3 active lawsuits against him, 2 for breach of contract, 1 for harassment. His business was bleeding money, barely holding on through loans and shady side deals. And the condo in Miami? Not in her sister's maiden name like she thought. In Miles's name and his ex-girlfriend's. You read that right? The place he bought for them? He co-signed it with another woman 6 months ago. He was playing her, just like she played me. I didn't even have to lift a finger to set that bomb off. I just made sure the fuse was in her hands. So I printed it all. I printed every page. Photos, financial records, text screenshots the PI pulled from a recovered burner phone tossed in a bar trash can. I left the folder on the dining table, no note. Just the truth waiting for her. Then I left the house. Drove to my brother's place, cracked open a beer, and waited. She didn't call. She didn't text. But the next morning, when I walked back in, the house was quiet. She was sitting at the table, the file wide open, eyes bloodshot. She'd clearly been up all night. I didn't say a word. She looked up at me, and her voice wasn't angry anymore. It was something far worse. It was scared. Where did you get this? I didn't answer. She didn't deserve answers anymore. You had someone follow him? She asked, almost breathless. You're insane. No, I said. You were just too arrogant to think anyone would look. And then she did something I never saw coming. She begged. I didn't know. Eric, listen to me. If I'd known what kind of man he really was, you'd have left me anyway. You just would have picked a different con artist. She stood up, came around the table. She tried to touch my arm. I stepped back. She froze. You don't get to play the victim now, I said. You built your escape on lies, and now it's crumbling. I'm just watching. Her face twisted. Guilt, desperation, maybe even the beginning of regret. But it didn't matter.
None of it did. Because I wasn't done. I looked her straight in the eyes and said, he doesn't want you either. You burned both bridges. She stared at me, searching for any opening. But I had none left. Go stay with him, I added. Or try. Let's see how long you last when you realize he's not the man you built in your fantasy. And then I turned and left her standing in the wreckage. But don't think this is the end of the road. 3 days passed. No texts. No voicemails. No late-night door rattling or theatrics. The house was quiet. She was still living in the guest room, barely making eye contact, moving around like a shadow. Like she was haunting a place she no longer belonged to. But I was ready for silence. Silence meant clarity. Silence meant planning. Then on the 4th day he showed up. I was out front, trimming the hedge. It was the kind of mindless chore I'd always hated before, but lately I found peace in it. The routine. The clean lines. No surprises. Until a black Lexus pulled into the driveway. And Miles stepped out. He was wearing designer sunglasses and a smug little smile like he'd just walked out of a commercial for overpriced whiskey. His walk was slow, deliberate, like he still believed he was the main character in all of this. I didn't speak. He walked right up to the edge of my lawn like he thought there was some invisible line I wouldn't cross. Idiot. I figured we should talk, he said, removing his glasses. His voice was calm, too calm, practiced. About. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Melissa. The situation. Look. I didn't know things were gonna blow up like this. It got messy fast. I get that. You think this is messy? I said. You haven't seen anything yet. That wiped the smile clean off his face. I'm not here to fight, he said quickly. In fact, I think we can help each other. I nearly laughed. You're standing on my property, after sleeping with my wife and helping her plot to steal from me. And you think this is a negotiation? Look, he said, lowering his voice. I didn't sign up for this drama. She didn't tell me everything. I found out she was using my name for financial stuff I never approved. That condo? She forged my name on a second account. My lawyer's already involved. I stared at him. You're trying to tell me she scammed you too? She's not who you think she is, he said, stepping closer. She's dangerous. And that's when it hit me. He was scared. Miles, the smooth-talking, backstabbing, girlfriend-juggling coward, had finally lost his grip. She wasn't just wrecking my life. She was ruining his too. She lied to both of us, he continued, sounding more desperate now. She told me she was leaving you months ago. Said you were abusive, distant, broke. She painted you like some washed-up nobody. And she never mentioned the money she was pulling from your accounts until the IRS called me last week. There it was. That was the mistake. She got greedy. She got sloppy. You came here to what? Warn me. I asked. No, he said. I came here to offer you leverage. I laughed. I couldn't help it. You think I need your leverage? I've got enough evidence to bury her in court. You're just a bonus. Miles clenched his jaw. Look, I'm in deep. If she goes down for fraud, I might get dragged into it. I have a business. A family reputation. This could ruin me. Good. He blinked. What? I stepped forward, closing the distance. Good. Because you deserve it. You came into my house, looked me in the eye, and smiled while sleeping with my wife. You thought you'd get away with it. You thought you were slick. You two deserve each other. I'm not asking for forgiveness, he snapped. I'm offering a deal. I don't want a deal. She's unraveling, he insisted. You saw it, didn't you? She's unpredictable. She's not done with either of us. She's going to burn everything she touches. I can help you shut it down clean, fast, no headlines, no court circus. You don't want this going public. I stared at him, and for a second I saw the fear behind his smug facade. But I didn't respond. I turned, walked back toward the house, and before I closed the door behind me, I said just loud enough, she already made it public. She just didn't know how many people were watching. I left him standing there. Let him taste the same silence I'd swallowed for months. But the best part? He wasn't the only one who had something to lose. She must have thought she still had a sliver of control. Even after being served, even after watching her fantasy with Miles go up in flames, even after realizing the man she was willing to destroy our family for had already started to run the other direction. She still walked around the house like she was waiting for the next act in her little drama to begin. But she didn't know the curtain had already dropped. What she didn't know, what I'd carefully kept from her, is that our kids knew. Not everything. I didn't sit them down and pour gasoline on their childhood memories. I didn't mention Miles or the emails or the financial lies. But I told them what mattered. Mom wasn't going to be living here much longer. And they asked why. Our daughter is 12. Smart, sharp, emotionally tuned in to every shift in the room. Our son is 9. Quiet but observant. They already knew. Kids know. They just wait for permission to understand. I sat them down in the den. Same spot we used to do movie nights in. I turned off the TV. Turned to them with nothing but honesty. There's been some problems between your mom and me. Some big ones. And she made choices that hurt our family. Our daughter asked, "Did she cheat on you?" I paused. That word. Cheat. Ugly. Heavy. But clean. True. Yes. No theatrics. No euphemisms. Just that. She didn't cry. She didn't scream. She sat there, stiff, processing. Our son? He looked down at the floor and asked, "Are we going to have to live with her?" That hit me like a punch. I said, "We're going to figure out the best way to keep everything safe and stable. For both of you." And then my daughter whispered something I'll never forget. "She's been lying to us too." I turned. She looked up at me, eyes glassy but sharp. I saw her texting someone for months. Hiding her phone. Smiling at it. When I asked who it was, she said it was work. But I knew. I just didn't want it to be true. She knew. She knew. That night, I came home and found Melissa in the kitchen. She was scrolling through her phone, pacing like she'd been stuck in the same loop for hours. I dropped the bomb without warning. "They know." She looked up. "What?" "The kids. They know what you did." Her face went pale in an instant. Not like before, this wasn't guilt. This was fear. Her hands started to tremble. "What did you tell them?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "The truth." "Enough of it. I didn't need to," they filled in the blanks. "Turns out, you've been more obvious than you thought. You had no right. They had every right." I cut in. "They're not stupid. And they're not blind. They deserved to know why their home is falling apart." She stepped forward, desperation overtaking her. "You don't understand. They'll hate me." "You earned that," I said, cutting her off. "You treated this family like a set piece. You thought you could rewrite the script without them noticing." Her eyes were wide, frantic now. "I didn't want to hurt them. But you did," I snapped. "You chose to. You didn't trip and fall into betrayal. You mapped it. You scheduled it. You prioritized it." She was breathing heavily now, arms shaking, unable to keep her composure. "I can fix this," she said, a final desperate grasp at control. "Let me talk to them. I'll explain it." "No," I said. "You don't get to explain it. Not right now. You don't get to manipulate them the way you tried to manipulate me." She stared at me like a stranger. And in that moment, she realized something. Not only had she lost the affair, not only had she lost the house, the money, the illusion, she lost her kids. They weren't running to her anymore. They weren't asking when she'd be back. They were already gone. Her knees buckled slightly as she leaned on the counter. I watched her crumble, slowly, quietly, exactly how she made me fall. No yelling. No slamming doors. Just silence. And in that silence, the walls she built started to crack from the inside. But if she thought that was the end of the pain, She hadn't read what the court filed next. The final move wasn't rage. It wasn't revenge. It wasn't some loud, cinematic declaration. It was paperwork. It was strategy. And it was done with the kind of cold precision that only comes when a man has been broken and rebuilt with fire in his chest and clarity in his eyes. After everything, her betrayal, the lies, the financial manipulation, dragging our children through her delusion, I wasn't just aiming to win. I was aiming to end her ability to ever do this again. Jacobs, my attorney, had filed for full custody. Not partial. Not shared. Full. With supervised visitation. He presented everything, the financial fraud, the burner phone, the forged condo paperwork, the PI report, even her emotional instability, the nights she didn't come home, the clear attempts to alienate me from the kids. Every piece was airtight. She hadn't just wrecked a marriage, she'd undermined the foundation of the family itself. But the final card? The one she never saw coming? The signed testimony. From Miles. Yeah. The man who was supposed to ride off into the sunset with her. After our little driveway chat, he caved. The IRS breathing down his neck. The lawsuits piling up. The threat of federal charges looming. He was ready to give up everything if it meant shaving years off his nightmare. He signed a sworn statement admitting to the affair, to the financial involvement, to the real estate deception, and most importantly, to her telling him the kids were just part of the old life she had to shed. That one line was enough to detonate her position in court like a landmine. I had Jacobs send her a courtesy copy before the hearing. I didn't hear her scream, but I imagined it. She confronted me in the hallway that night. I was brushing my teeth. She barged into the bathroom like the house was still hers. "You're trying to erase me from their lives?" she hissed, eyes wild, cheeks flushed. "No," I said calmly. "I'm trying to protect them from someone who chose herself over them. You made this bed." She threw the papers at me. They fluttered to the ground like white flags. "Miles? Miles gave you this?" I just nodded. She stared at the mirror for a long time, then whispered more to herself than me, "He said he loved me." I turned off the faucet, wiped my hands, and said, "You believed that the same way you believed I'd never stand up for myself." Her lip trembled. For the first time, I saw the crack beneath the cracks. Not the mask slipping. Not anger. Not even regret. But emptiness. She had built her identity around escape. Now she had nowhere to run. And the next day? The court hearing hit like a tidal wave. Jacobs didn't need drama. He came armed with structure. Facts. Witnesses. Even our daughter wrote a letter to the judge, one she insisted on writing herself. It read, in part, "My mom doesn't feel like my mom anymore. She lies and pretends a lot. I love her, but I don't feel safe with her right now." The judge didn't need convincing. She lost custody. She got visitation rights. Twice a month. Supervised by a third party she had to pay for. The look on her face when the gavel came down? It wasn't anger. It wasn't sadness. It was disbelief. Like she'd written an entire movie in her head and suddenly realized she wasn't the main character. Outside the courthouse, she tried to say something. I didn't stop. I walked right past her. I had nothing left to say. Because the damage was already done. It's been 8 months since the gavel came down. 8 months since I walked out of that courtroom, out from under the weight of a life I no longer recognized, into something quieter, slower, realer. I won't tell you it was easy. There were nights I couldn't sleep. Not from grief, but from the eerie stillness that follows a storm. You get used to living in chaos, you start bracing for impact even when the sky's clear. The kids adjusted faster than I did. Our daughter barely spoke to her mother for the first few months. When visitation started, she went out of obligation, not trust. It wasn't anger, it was disappointment. A kind of betrayal only a parent can earn. Our son, quiet as ever, came to me one night and asked, "Is she going to lie to other people too?" That question hit harder than anything the court could have said. I told him the truth. Probably. But now you know how to spot it. I started going to therapy, not because I was broken, but because I refused to stay in the ruins. I needed to understand how I let it all happen, how I ignored the signs, how I shrunk myself for so long to avoid conflict while she planned her great escape. And slowly, piece by piece, I built something new. The house is different now. Lighter.
Her perfume doesn't haunt the corners anymore. Her wine glasses are gone. Her framed photos in the hallway replaced with drawings the kids made, pictures of camping trips, dumb Polaroids we take on Friday movie nights. I took the dining table she used to host fake dinner parties at and moved it into the garage. Got a round one instead. No heads, no ends. Everyone, no thrones for liars. I learned how to cook again. Not just throw things together, cook. Real meals. The kind that made the kids say, "Whoa, Dad." Like I just pulled off a magic trick. I never realized how much of my own life I had abandoned, trying to hold together something that had been hollow for years. She still tries to claw her way back sometimes. Emails that say things like, "Maybe we should talk." Really talk. Or, "For the sake of the kids." As if she didn't try to erase them too. As if she didn't call our life a mistake in front of another man. I don't respond. There's nothing left to say. Miles disappeared completely. Last I heard through the grapevine, he'd filed for bankruptcy. One of the lawsuits caught up to him. Another ex is dragging him into court. A man who plays that many games eventually gets trapped in his own maze. Melissa. She's renting a 2-bedroom apartment and working remote gigs. Her family knows, though they don't talk about it. The kind of shame that simmers under the surface. She's living in the shadow of what she torched. Maybe she'll claw her way back to something someday. I don't wish her harm, but I'll never forget what she did. I don't carry hatred, but I carry remembrance. And if you're a man reading this, standing in the middle of suspicion, denial, confusion, thinking, "No, not my wife. She'd never do that," let me tell you something I wish I'd heard sooner. Stop romanticizing loyalty that isn't mutual. Stop assuming silence means peace. And stop waiting for proof that hurts to finally believe what your gut's been screaming for months. If she looks you in the eye one day and says, "I'm still young. I'm still attractive. Tonight, I'm staying with someone else. And I don't care how you feel about it." And she smiles, thinking you'll beg. Don't. Look her dead in the eye. And say what I said, "You don't get to come back here." Then let the silence do the rest. Because the only thing more powerful than revenge is walking away so quietly that they can hear their own destruction echoing for years.